Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everybody in the community, this is Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. And for those who don't know, I'm Teddy, and the other dude in the bright shirt with the shiny top of his head is Mr. Randy Wooden. Our special guest today is Mr. Shawan Gabriel of Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and we will introduce you to him momentarily. For those who've never shown up or heard this show or seen it, we bring community leaders. We bring really, really smart people to the show to bring new ideas and insights and perspectives that Randy and I just do not have in our bag of tricks. And today is show 174. We've been doing this since, I think, April of 2020. And I think, if I remember right, the court said we had to go for another year or so before there were releases. But anyway, we're glad you're all here. We're glad Shawan's here, and again, Randy, I'll introduce you to him momentarily. I'm Teddy. I'm a LinkedIn strategist, trainer, and coach. I teach people how to use LinkedIn as a business tool. I teach people how to use LinkedIn for career. I teach people how to use LinkedIn for lots of reasons, including I work with salespeople, business developers, account executives, and even those marketing people. So, hey, Randy, are we up and running, buddy?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, I think did that okay on LinkedIn and Facebook. So we're ready to roll for yet another.
Good, buddy. Go ahead and tell
another week. We're at August 9th. So the month is already flying by. Randy Wooden with Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina, director for our professional center. Now, we're based in Winston-Salem, but I have clients all over, actually. So if you or maybe somebody you know is in a job search or thinking about it, maybe you've got an adult child just graduated from college and interested in landing a job. In any event, our services are free. Happy to help. Just find me on LinkedIn, get on the calendar, and we'll get going where we need to get going to get you back where you want to be. But every Wednesday, Teddy and I get together. We've been doing it for a few years now and have a lot of fun. We learn things along the way, and this week will be no exception. I think a lot of us have heard of Big Brothers, Big Sisters, just like a lot of people have heard of Goodwill. But what do they really do? And how do different chapters or different organizations within the overall umbrella of Big Brothers, how do they operate? And what are some of the impacts they have on our community? So we're going to dive into a lot of those topics with Shawan Gabriel. And Shawan, you are the president and CEO of Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Now, you're with the local, what I'll call chapter, and that may not be the right word. What is your local organization called?
Our local organization is called Big Brothers Big Sisters Services. We call ourselves affiliates. So we are an operation of about 280 agencies across the U.S.
Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more and how long you've been there, and tell us a little bit more about your background.
Oh, well, first of all, guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share the mission of Big Brothers Big Sisters. I am a native of Charlotte. Grew up there in Charlotte and came to school over at Lenore Ryan for a while and finished up at Guilford College. And I've been in the triad since 2000. So when I graduated, so I've been in the triad working with Big Brothers Big Sisters for 17 of those years. And I worked with the YMCA as an exec for 4 years. So I started out with Big Brothers Big Sisters as a 1-year kind of grant funded program to serve children in kindergarten. And it was a really cool concept at the time. And it was honestly a time for me to kind of have a gap year between undergrad and preparing for law school. And I fell in love with the work. And I worked there in the High Point Greensboro agency for 7 years and left, went to the YMCA for 4. And I've been back here now as the president and CEO for the last 10 years.
Wow. So you've no doubt seen some changes. You've been through the 2000, all the turmoil from the late 2000s and just a whole lot of stuff going on.
A lot of changes indeed.
A lot of changes. And by the way, if you have comments or questions for Shawan, put them in the chat area. Teddy will keep an eye on that and work those in where appropriate. So we have a lot of turf to cover today. I always ask the why question. And you said you fell in love with the mission. So help us understand, was there a single instance or a series of events that kind of led you down that path to say, hey, this is home for me. This is where I need to be?
Well, as I said, I started as in a one year grant funded program. And I I looked at the chat just now. I just saw my daughter's in here. Hey, Aaron. So I started in a 1-year grant funded program to work with kindergartners. And the concept was to match those kindergartners and keep those children matched through graduation as a cohort. So it wasn't one instance, but when I saw the impact that the children that we had matched versus those other children that weren't matched in those years, and hearing the testimony from teachers and parents on just how much the mentoring services meant to them, I fell in love with the possibility of being able to impact lives that way. And I didn't know that was possible prior to that 1-year grant funded program. And I went to the CEO at the time and had a conversation about, hey, what's this? What could a career look like in nonprofit, right? So I didn't, when you think of nonprofit, you don't really think of a career. I didn't, at least, because my plan was to go to law school. And when I had that conversation, I decided to go back and get my master's in public administration and wanted a career in leading policy and fundraising and programming for an agency like this. And it's turned out to be beautiful.
Good deal. How many folks work in your agency?
We have 15 team
15. Do you? Okay, cool. Well, let's try to get an understanding here of how this agency kind of fits in else.
Oh. So Randy's been having internet connectivity issues. And so if he doesn't come back, Shawan, we're professionals at doing this.
All right.
I'll figure out a way to get through it.
I think one of the things, maybe where he was going, was some of the history of Big Brothers and how we fit as a part of the National Federation. It's kind of what we talked about.
Yeah.
So I can, if you want to keep moving or you want to wait.
Let's go with that.
Okay.
So
our local agency's been around for 46 years. Just celebrated our 46th year back in last month, July. We are part of, again, roughly 275, 280 affiliates across the nation. And those affiliates range from small to medium sized to large agencies. And we're what we call the mid to large agency, where we serve roughly 500 children a year. And that's down from the pandemic, where we were roughly around 700 to 800 in previous years. And we're working to climb our way back up to that. But the smaller agencies, there's some agencies that serve less than 100 children. And then you have the Chicago and Miami and LA and New York who serve over 5,000 children a year. So we fit right in the middle of what that is for our federation.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Winston, if I heard you right, Big Brothers Big Sisters in Winston-Salem serves about 500 children a year, and that's down?
Yeah, that's down from where we were prior to the pandemic. At our height, I think in around 2018, 2019, we were serving close to 900 children. Okay. Now, there are a lot of factors that go into that. So it's some of that is demand, some of that is our screening process, some of it is just the nature of how folks want to give their time. Yeah. We've had to shift some of that.
Yeah. And I guess your level of support is also dependent upon the level of volunteers and bigs who want to be a part of the program.
Correct. Yeah. And I think, that's one of our biggest challenges, right? Because what we've seen, Randy alluded to it earlier, what we've seen is a shift in how folks want to give their time. Yeah. When I started this, prior to me starting this, back in the 90s, when Big Brothers, we had a national push to serve 1 million children. And, we have a 1-year commitment for volunteering as a big or little, for a big in our program. Yeah. The mentor. And that was really nothing for folks back in the 90s or even some of the early 2000s. But that target group of volunteers that are 25 to 35 now, an hour is a lot. That's a lot to give a week. And they want to, what we see more of is, how do I maximize my time to, and use technology like Zoom? Yeah. Use text message. Everybody has FaceTime. And so our policies didn't always sync with that. And then our research-based practices don't always match up with having that type of model. So we've had to adjust. And again, it just means people volunteering differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey guys, sorry, I got
I'm gonna hand it back to you in a
my
minute.
internet. I need to put another quarter in the slot or something, but sorry about that.
I'm gonna hand it back to you. I asked Shawan this question. I wonder what percentage of the time, and you may not know this, do your bigs spend playing games like Minecraft and Fortnite virtually with their littles?
Well, I'll tell you this, during the pandemic, it was a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Because we weren't able to see each other in person. We highly encourage finding similar interests. I know that we also want the children to be exposed to new interests.
Yeah.
So I don't know that a lot happens around video gaming unless that's more of what, big and the child are into.
Yeah.
But I would say that most of our bigs are really active and outside of a video game or in a home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, catch me up to date.
We just
I was so rudely interrupted. So yeah, what?
Yeah, we just hit basically the second bullet point is what we worked on. So besides, I want to get, if we can, get Todd's question, and then you can take it up with number 3, Randy. Shawan, Todd asked this question: how do you define service?
How do you define service? When it depends on the child. So every child that comes to us has an initial assessment, and we kind of help define what their needs are. But in generally speaking, it's being a friend, which anyone can be. It's being a listening ear. It's helping to connect them with services or aspects of their young lives that they may not otherwise have a benefit to have access to. It's again, just being there, showing up for the child. And I keep that as loose as possible, Todd, because we don't have a set curriculum on, hey, this is what you have to do in order to be successful. It just depends on the child.
Right.
And it's all individualized.
Mm-hmm. What's the so did we get much into the history? Because that's what I was asking about.
We talked about that.
We talked about history of Big Brother, how it got started, and how your agency got started also.
Well, I didn't go to that specifically, but I will. So our agency nationally got started in New York City when some group of men wanted to take on the responsibility of some of the boys that they saw in the community that weren't behaving so well. And it was a Big Brothers agency. Big Sisters was added, I think, in the 50s. And this started back in the early 1900s, 1920s, I think, in New York City. Our local agency started in 1977, and the initial funding was given by KBR, Kate B. Reynolds Charitable Trust, the Winston-Salem Foundation, United Way. And there were 3 local judges that sat as the original, and an attorney that sat as the original board members. And they hired Bert Grissard, who was our original CEO. Yeah. And Bert was here for 30 years. Amy Mack came after him. She was here for 2 years, and I've been here the last 10, 11 years.
So, and also then how your agency is different or unique. Is that something that you guys covered? Catching up here, but
well, I'll tell you this. So we are one of 5 agencies over the last this past year to receive what we call the Pinnacle Award. And the Pinnacle Award is a top award given to agencies who increase the number of children served, who raise at least $250,000, who have a percentage of their match retention above 74%. And what match retention is, how many of the matches stay year after year, right? And so our average match length is somewhere around 3 years. So in terms of, and that's a quality, that's what they define as a quality agency. And in order to be a Pinnacle agency, you have to do that for 2 or more years. And we received that award this year. That separates us in a pretty big way. Out of 280 agencies, 5 of us were able to achieve that. Locally, we have a lot of autonomy in terms of programming. One thing that we're really excited about, and we may get into this a little later, but we've hired mentors. We've never done that. All of our work has always been through volunteerism, but we've hired mentors to serve in our school-based programs. And those mentors take on roughly 25 students who participate in group work as well as one-to-one sessions throughout the year. It's a pilot that we started in this past year in 2 schools that's going really, really well. So we're excited to expand it into 5 schools this fall. That's going to help usher us, and I think, into our next phase of service.
Yeah, no, in our case with Goodwill, the old saying is, if you've seen one Goodwill, you've seen one Goodwill.
Right.
There is no governing body that says you must do these things. And, we all have the same mission, but we have the ability to adapt to the local marketplace, to put programs together that work for the community we serve. And I'm guessing that that's kind of the same. What you do may differ from what they may do in a larger city, maybe like a Charlotte. I don't know. Help me understand how you operate could be a little bit different, and what you're doing well that earned you that Pinnacle Award. You've been doing something right. It's no accident. So, yeah.
So again, I think one of the major things that we're doing different is that we've hired these mentors to go into the schools. No one else. Atlanta is the only other agency that I know of that's doing that right now. Another cool thing that we do, well, I use the word cool, but we have a cool club. It's called our Club of Unmatched Littles. Most agencies will enroll a child, and the child becomes a part of their wait list while they wait to be matched in the program. We offer ongoing activities, ongoing check-ins with those children who are not yet matched, and they're part of what we call our Cool Club.
Yeah.
Not many agencies do that.
And again, if we've done this already, then forgive me, but the whole idea of understanding terminology, and we kick around terms like bigs and littles, help us understand what is a big and what is a little, and are there age parameters for the littles and the bigs?
So I'll start with the little. A little is a mentee. So a little is a child age 6 to 18 who's lives in Davie or Forsyth County. That's what we define as a little. And there's really no other criteria other than being enrolled in school at this point. So we don't have IEPs or kind of individual.
What's an IEP? I don't. Yeah.
So that's like special needs that we bring in other services. We will serve those kids or refer them to some of our other partner agencies who may be better equipped. For our bigs, any bigs range from age 19 to 90. So we don't have an age parameter around being a big. There are criteria around the enrollment pieces and the background check. So we do a thorough background check, references, criminal background checks, home assessments, all of those things. So, I mean, there are parameters around it, but in terms of age, there's not an age parameter.
Yeah. So Teddy, you still got a couple of years left to get under the wire. You said 19 to 90.
Yeah, you just barely, Randy.
Barely. So you got a couple of years left in you. So I don't know. It's never too late. Although it could be in a couple. Good deal. All right. So a lot of things, a lot of things going on. You mentioned the mentoring in the schools. That's kind of a cool thing. So that you say that you may be one of 2 agencies that you know of that do this. How did you come up with the idea, the game plan to do this? Where'd that come from?
Well, it honestly came out of the pandemic. When we came out of the pandemic, we realized more than ever that a lot of children wanted us, but the rate of volunteerism was slowed. So we had to figure out, how do we serve children, right? And as an agency, because again, we're so heavily dependent on volunteers, but the volunteers aren't there, shouldn't mean that kids shouldn't be served. So I went to my board and we talked about, we went through some, couple of strategic exercises to really think through what could a new model look like. And again, we need research to prove that this works, right? So we don't just try anything without having some sort of context. And so we looked across some other agencies, non-Big Brothers Big Sisters agencies, on some of the work that folks had done. And there's a group called Friends of the Children, which is another national organization that's really starting to gain some heavy traction in their services. And I had a couple calls with them to talk about kind of how they do things. And so we launched a pilot in last school year, and it went over really, really well. Met with some of the school officials about how we could partner better with them and help define the work and get better research on how these mentors can impact their school. And so that's how it started. It was out of necessity because we didn't want to have parents and teachers calling us with a need and not be able to meet that.
Talking with Shawan Gabriel, President CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters here in Forsyth County. And I was part of, and we don't need to go into a whole ton of detail on this thing, but I was part of with Leadership Winston-Salem class of 2022. We worked on a marketing project for you guys to help understand, how to deal with the whole issues of COVID and volunteerism being down and just, what are people thinking in terms of why they volunteer or why they don't and so forth. So, and I imagine part of that all kind of went into the mix to say, hey, you know what, we can do things a little bit differently. We just have to understand how do we reach the needs of the people if we don't have the volunteers. So good stuff. A lot of things going on. And you're talking about the challenges and successes. So we can get into some more of the successes, I think, later on. But back on the challenge, COVID just had to rock the world here for everybody. And I think you touched on a couple of ways. Help us understand how COVID impacted things and then how you were able to emerge to the level that you have.
So, I mean, we're in the business of putting people together, right? Like that's our work. And the world shut down and you couldn't do it. So through, luckily we had, as a part of our national affiliation, they developed an app that helped for us to be able to monitor some of those interactions, but also facilitate the bigs and the littles, the volunteers and the children getting together to be able to continue to at least dialogue, to talk, because no one knew what we were faced with, right?
No.
So it was great to have the ability to continue to communicate and see on some levels how bigs and littles could interact. And also what came out of that, our building, I think one of you mentioned our building earlier. I think it was you, Andy. And so our mentoring center, I still call it new. We bought it back in 2019, but then we moved in, I think moved in the fall, and then we moved right back out in the spring. So it's still new to us, but it allowed us to explore ways to better use this facility. So the matches, the children, we use it for activities here. We have everything from cooking demonstrations to STEM activities around science and technology. We have movie nights. So we're able to bring them into a safe space that they're not really, for a while, people really weren't getting out and exploring other places. So having the ability to host was a major part. And now that we use our facility for so much more, now that we had to experience that, we're forced to experience that in the pandemic.
Yeah, and that's changed a lot of the ways people communicate. What we're doing right now is a prime example.
Right.
You do what you got to get it done. Teddy, I don't know whether there's anything in the chat. My chat got wiped out when I got kicked off. So anything that was there is
no. Anybody has a question or thought about Big Brothers Big Sisters, just jump in with chat and we'll bring it up. Nothing we have to grab right now, Randy. All
right. So one of the things that you wanted to mention, and I'd hope you'll elaborate on this, is needs for the agency. Help us understand what those might be.
Well, we listen, our mission is still one-to-one mentoring. I mentioned the mentors that we're bringing into the schools, but we still have close to 100 children on our cool list. So kids who are looking to be matched in that one-to-one community-based relationship. So our needs are, we need volunteers. We need mentors. 60% of those are probably boys. So we need men to serve as big brothers. We continually, that we also always need, in order to feed that mission, we have to raise more dollars. So we have our annual Vote for Kids' Sake that folks can get involved in, our annual mail appeal to support our agency, but those needs are ever present.
You're always going to have those. And maybe Teddy, you can, if you haven't already put up any information, if somebody is interested in learning more, that way they can
I'm
reach
all
out.
over it, Randy.
All right.
Bang on the keyboard, man.
You're not getting a raise though, Teddy. I'm just saying this. You're in a good spot right where you are. Yeah, that cool list. So people are on the waiting list. Is there a certain amount of time that they stay on that?
No.
And is there an average amount of time, or can it be indefinite? Just help us understand what that might look like.
We definitely don't want it to be indefinite. Children generally are on that cool list, I would say less than a year. It truly depends on the needs of the child, the parents' preferences, and the volunteers that we have the ability to match. Right. So there are some parents who want very specific things in a big. If we don't have a volunteer or big to meet that, then that child may stay on the wait list longer. So it's truly individualized.
Yeah, I could see that. Teddy, I think there was a question.
Yeah, I'll get that one, Randy. I got it. Gloria is one of Randy's and my long-term fans. I'd be surprised if you don't know Gloria Harrison, Shawan. If you don't, you need to. She's good peeps in the triad. She wants to know if Big Brothers Big Sisters, how do they partner with other agencies? You alluded to that. I talked about it a little bit. And are you looking for other relationships, with partnering organizations?
So it's two questions there. One, we partner with the YMCA, the YWCA, Crosby Scholars, are our main program partners, but also the Parenting Path for some of our work with, our parents. In terms of other mentoring agencies, we would love to be a resource for especially those grassroots agencies who are starting out and just they have the desire but need some context. We would love to be able to be a support and help usher in that work, because I know that we can't serve every child. Yeah. And I don't think I know Gloria, but if her question, if she's involved in, another mentoring program, we would love to have that conversation to figure out how we can help bring context to your work and help facilitate, impacting, the work that you have the ability to do.
Yeah. We have some other, we'll get to some other topics. We're going to talk about how you identify bigs and littles. And also there are a lot of questions that as a potential big, questions or concerns about what does this whole endeavor look like, and so forth. We're gonna try to tackle that, but I just want to make sure that any of the things that we've already had on our list that we've talked about, and if you need to talk a little bit more about them, anything that, again, maybe things you're working on that help make you different. You mentioned the mentoring program. Are there some other twists and things that you have in the works that, again, you're excited about?
Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I'm hitting that point or not, because those things are really big to me. Those are really innovative, cutting edge in our field. Those things are truly unheard of. Well, so I don't want to repeat that again, but those things are pretty major for our work in terms of having the ability to partner with schools directly and work directly in schools with their support of those principals is pretty big news for us.
I would think too that teachers, you've got the mentors in the schools, but the teachers who see these kids each day, do you find that teachers often can make good bigs? That makes sense to me? I don't know, but help me understand.
Well, we haven't found that. We haven't really explored that either. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that for a lot of our teachers, and this is a totally other subject, my wife's a high school principal, by the way. So, and she's been in education for about 20 years now. But a lot of those teachers after school are going to different jobs or have other family obligations, and not a lot of time of what we found in previous years. So we haven't touched on that, Randy, in terms of them being a mentor in their own school, but it's possible. I'm sure we could raise that conversation.
Yeah. Teddy, we're about halfway through if you want to.
Yeah, you're on You're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. Our special guest today is Shawan Gabriel with Big Brothers Big Sisters Services of in Winston-Salem. Randy and I have been doing this since April of 2020. We're all about bringing community leaders, thought provokers. Again, I'm using this phrase, people who are way smarter than Randy and I, who can bring great conversations to the show. If you have an idea of somebody who can really bring a good topic to the show, please introduce those people directly to Randy and I so we can have a chat. We'd appreciate it. So Randy, back to you and Shawan.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the bigs. When you mentioned the 19 to 90, the obligatory age joke there with Teddy, but the 19 piece, that deals with people who are fresh out of high school or maybe at college age. And is that, I guess, your primary target age wise? I mean, you're not going to turn somebody away if they pass the background and they have the interest in all that, but primarily bigs, where do you find them falling in age wise?
So the 19, and so those kids, and it's actually 18, because we had, at one point, we were matching high school kids, like high school juniors and seniors, with elementary school children in a school-based, facilitated program. So not in our community-based program. For our community-based program, you have to be 21 and out of college to participate in that program. So those children, or those young adults who are 18 to 21, they're only matched in our school-based facilitated program. So there's supervision in that program. Now, our core volunteer starting point is between the ages 25 and 35. Yeah. So that's probably our sweet spot. Now, as I said earlier, and I'm talking specifically for our community-based program. Yep. In our site-based program, where they go into the school for an hour a week, that number is probably 35 or 45 as a starting point. They're older in that program. And our average match length is around 3 years. So if we have, I'll go back to one of the things you said that we're doing differently. This year, we had both the state Big Brother and Big Sister of the Year. And we're very, very proud of that. So out of all we serve around 500. Charlotte is around 700, 750. Asheville is around 500 or so. So I think around 3,000, 3,500 bigs across the state. We won the award for the Big Brother and Big Sister of the Year, right? And both of those matches were matched 10 years. One was 11 years. So one was 11 years, it was 10 years. They both just graduated this past spring. So when you think about the target, I don't know that we have a target, but I know that the sweet spot are those age groups.
I wonder why the 25-35 is there? Have you thought through the why for these guys? Why is that age the sweet spot?
Yeah, and some of that came out in the work that you all did. It's people have more time. They're looking for things to get involved in. It's generally before families and careers are taking off. And I'll tell you this, one of the things that we're seeing here in Winston-Salem anyway, not a lot of folks stay here. So they're coming here, but they're not necessarily staying. They're here a couple years and then they move. Their careers take them other places. So with that, we actually want bigs who are more established and older because we want those longer, stronger relationships. So again, I don't know why the 25 to 35 other than those reasons, because I think people just have more time.
Just in terms of trying to raise awareness of the program, I know, as an example, within Goodwill, without going into a lot of detail, we have what I'll call professional clothing for folks that are going on interviews, and occasionally we will reach out to some of the larger employers in the area. And it's not a blood drive, but it's a clothing drive, and raising awareness. Say, hey, look through your closet. If you have things you're not using, help somebody who's going through the interview process. I'm wondering, is that something that you've done, you've thought about doing, maybe in raising awareness about what you're all about? Because again, some of these big companies are loaded with young professionals of that age range.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think we
Mhm.
so we do those types of things, and we attend. The day is not that companies allow folks to come in the way that they used to, right? I
Okay.
mean, we used to have, when I say we, nonprofits, namely United Way, would have access to companies, and I won't name them, but the local larger companies around here, we would have access to them yearly. We would always be able to go in and able to talk with them about our programs. And what we've seen is that dialed back tremendously. And even since and now that since COVID, a lot of those folks don't work in any facility, right? So they're home. And so one of the things we've done with one local company is we hosted one of these. We hosted a lunch and learn, a Zoom.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we want to try to use all those ways, Randy, to attract folks. I think the biggest thing we learned in the past year is that we have to be flexible in understanding and understanding how people want to volunteer, and not just have everyone have to fit into this certain box, because people are so unique. And that's been a huge undertaking. I hired a director of impact, Courtney Jones, who has come in and done a tremendous job with and hired essentially a new team to identify what that looks like. We were at a partner event last night, and I think in our session this morning, I think 5 people from that community want to volunteer, and they have filled out our volunteer applications. That's something we hadn't been a part of that community in years past. So just figuring out how strategically it makes sense for us to partner is where we are.
Yeah. Teddy, I don't know if you want to tackle what's in the.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, Shawan, always it's hard. We've got to be, teaching new old dogs new tricks, because and until we're willing to try something different and be a little bit different, we're not going to overcome the challenges that we face, as the society and our areas change. I mean, absolutely. So. And Gloria just shared, she loves Crosby Scholars. There's lots of organizations in Winston-Salem that align in lots of different ways with big brothers and big sisters. And, if you're the new person you just put on staff, I would believe she's looking at all those types of organizations to find how do we connect? How do we partner to serve, or in these different areas? So back to you, Randy.
Yeah. So let's dive into something that I think a lot of people at some point would wonder about. I mean, we've heard of Big Brothers, Big Sisters. We've heard of all kinds of, like, the United Way. We've heard of all these things. And it's like, oh, that's nice. They do a good job. And, I support them, and I think they're doing great and all that. But when it comes to the rubber meeting the road and actually getting involved, then it's like, well, wait a second now. I don't know what this thing looks like. I have concerns about time commitment. I've got, what's this going to cost me? How do you match me with somebody? What if I don't like them? They don't like me. And, then we raise all these barriers and we say, so walk away from it. And I see you're grinning. So you've seen this movie before. All right. So let's tackle that one, because that's a big hurdle. How do you work through those concerns? How do you get to them to the point where they're saying, hey, you know what, this is for me. I can do this.
I'll tell you something that someone told me a few years ago, pre-pandemic, but we were talking about partnering with the church, and the church had been involved in this school. And when the school was so excited to have Big Brothers, Big Sisters be the conduit, if you will, or facilitator for the church to be involved. But when the church heard Big Brothers, Big Sisters, it was like, whoa, that's too big. I just want to go and hang out with a kid at school. I just want to be a kid's friend. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's what we want. But the name to them meant so much more, right? So it's getting to having the ability to have that personalized one-to-one conversation, Randy,
Mhm.
and there's no way to just cookie cutter say it. So we use social media to post kind of what it means to be a big. People don't always, you may read it, but it's like, no, they're just trying
Yeah.
to get in. We in all of our marketing, it takes a little to be big, right? That was one of the national marketing pushes. Like it only takes a little to make a make a big impact. But people hear that and it's like, big brothers, there's a lot of money involved and you got to do all these different things. And that's not it, but those individual conversations, those things have to take place one-to-one is what I've learned, right? If you and I can sit and talk and I hear your concerns, I think we can work through it most of the time.
Yeah, I'd wonder. So help me understand then, you say there's background check and other legal things that have to be done. Thankfully, those are done, and so that's a good thing. How do you really set up the match with the big and the little? How does that work?
So we start with the background checks, the reference checks, the interview, the assessment. We have dialogue around the office, and kind of group sessions about potential red flags. But I'll tell you, well, before I get to that part. And so the same on the little side. So for the child, the parent comes to us and they have a certain outcomes or impact that they want to see. And so we kind of pair those with, hey, here's what a kid needs. Here's what a volunteer has to offer. Does this make sense, right? And so we have a team of professionals who kind of work through those things, and then we propose it to the child and the parent. And the parent signs off and says, yes, that's somebody I would potentially like my child to be matched with. And then we go to the volunteer and say, hey, here's who we have for you. And then we have a match, what we call an initial match meeting, where we facilitate like a couple games, get to know you exercises, generally done here in our office, unless a parent wants it, somewhere else. But generally from there, rarely are we seeing matches not work from that perspective of just not being compatible, if you will. That's a very rare occurrence. As I said, 74% of our matches last at least a year. So, I mean, that's, and the ones that don't, people move all the time, not just the volunteers, but children as well. So we feel pretty good about that screening process. And I always like to tell folks, we don't necessarily screen people out because that's really not where the work happens. What separates us, here's another thing that separates us from other mentoring programs. We have professional match support. So if you're matched in our program, every month you're hearing from a member of our team to help assess the activities that you're doing, help it assess the needs of the kid or the needs of the big, to help assess the impact on the plan that we've created, and to assess any red flags that we need to be aware of, and have conversation with the parent so that they're feeling supported because they're trusting us with their young person.
I got you. So you alluded early on to back in the day, I think it was you needed to commit to an hour a week or something like that. And so help us understand broad terms here. What are you looking at now? If I'm interested in being a big, what is the time commitment these days?
We ask for 4 to 6 hours per month. So it's not a different time commitment. It's just, it's what we've heard is I was a big, right? I was a big for 10 years. And so we would go to a lot of sports games, and, if I take him to a game, we're probably there 3-4 hours. Right. And so if I'm doing that, and then next week we're doing something more for another 3 or 4 hours, a lot of times that becomes a lot, right? That becomes a lot. And so what we heard from Biggs was like, could there be a commitment? Could there be a monthly commitment? Right. And in between time, especially with all this technology that we have now, we can Zoom, we can FaceTime, we can text, which all kids want to do. They don't want to talk on the phone. that's one of the policy changes we made. So it's 4 to 6 hours a month in that first year, and hadn't had any pushback on it.
Yeah. How do you identify, we've talked about how you can identify bigs. How about the littles and outreach? Is that done through the school where you've got the mentors there? Or if I'm a parent, how do I know to reach out to you and say, hey, I'd like to engage my child in your program?
Really, really interesting. Like I said, I've been doing this now 17 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've never had to recruit littles, right? It's parents who've had experiences with our program, with other siblings, with family members. Schools refer children to us all the time. Program partners refer children to us, Department of Social Services. So we have a lot of referral sources. And when you say identify,
they come to you.
They come to us.
Yeah, they come to you. So that's a good thing. When things don't work out for whatever reason, I think a lot of responsibility, my personal opinion, falls to the parent to help ensure that the child shows up for the events and takes an active role. And because in some cases, maybe the child is doing it only because the parent wants it, and maybe the child doesn't. I don't know how you sniff that stuff out to really get down to, hey, is the motivation there? Have you found that that can happen? Just the lack of what I'll call follow through on a let's say the parent's part.
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is the part about a child not wanting to be a part of the program. We find that out during that assessment process.
Okay.
Child's not ready and willing, we won't match. So a parent, the parent can't come to us and say, hey, I want my child matched and I don't care what they want. We're not going to do that. Like that's not, it has to be a child who is ready and excited and willing. And as far as a parent involvement in terms of the supporting the match, that goes back to our monthly match support, where parents, for the most part, our parents they come to us and they're on it. I mean, because they want this for their child. They want their child to have different experiences. And so the support we receive from them is pretty tremendous.
What about what I'll call the alumni effect? So you've had littles that have gone through the program, and they've gone through high school, they've graduated, and they are out of the little bucket now. Are you finding that they say, hey, I want to be a big? How does that pivot work?
That definitely happens. That surely happens. There's a national push that you'll actually, I don't know if you heard this already or not, but you're right on it, Randy. There's a national push for.
We're a crack reporting staff here. Just to let you know, we are at the bleeding edge of technology. Look at Dr. Burriss over there. So we're on it, but I digress. I'm sorry to cut you off there.
That's okay. So yeah, but bigs, we had a former board chair recently, who's a little in our program, and then was a big and became a board member. So we definitely see that as a part of. We had a staff member who was a little in our program for years and served as a staff member for 5 years and was a big. So I mean, we see some of that. But you know, Randy, that's a real opportunity that we haven't captured. Because so many, I can't tell y'all how many times I'm out. If I'm out and I have on a Big Brothers Big Sisters shirt or a Big Brothers Big Sisters any paraphernalia, that somebody will say, I was a little.
Yep.
Really? Yeah, I was a little, and it may not be here locally, but I was a little in Peoria, Illinois. And it's the alumni are there. We just haven't done a good job of identifying them and getting them involved. But I think that's a huge opportunity for not just our agency, but for our federation.
I would think, and not only that, but financial support too, if they've gone out, in at least now with technology, of course, email, young people don't email, but I'm sure you guys are working on ways to keep tethered to your alums that move out of and you say the age was it 18 when they're no longer eligible?
Right. They age out at the age of 18.
Age of 18. A quick question about fundraisers that just popped up You've got bowling, right? That's a big one.
Yeah.
What all
we have our
involved with?
Bowl for Kids' Sake. That's the first Friday in March every year. And
Mhm.
that's where, I mean, we raised $120,000 in that last year. So it's about 15% of our budget. So it's a major part of what we do. It's a one-day bowling event. You get 5 of your friends together, and the goal for each team is $625. But it's a really, really fun time. There's always a theme. We haven't revealed the theme for next year yet, but last year I think the theme was movies. It was like children's movies, and we were the what's the name of the Minions? Yeah, we were the Minions.
The Minions, yeah.
Last year.
I got the yellow shirt on, so I'm close.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
and so we also have an annual golf tournament. This year, the Charlene Curtis was a long time board member, big, and a donor of our program, who passed away last year. And we're having a golf event in her honor this year, and it's all female. So it's aimed at all girls programming in our program. And that's going to be September 30th of this year over at the Winston Lake Golf Course. And then we'll have a fundraiser next spring in April for Volunteer Appreciation Week. There'll be a breakfast event. So there's more details to come on there. In addition to those, we always have our annual mail writing campaign. So we have a mail writing campaign in the spring, and then one again in the fall and winter time of the year.
Wow. So lots on your plate. We've got a few minutes left, and I wanted to ask you, and we touched on a couple of them, and feel free to repeat them because they're pretty cool. But some awards and recognition that we've got going on right here with your agency here in the Triad.
Well, so again, we're excited about, we, out of the 10 years I've been here, we've received the Quality Award 8 of those years. So we've always, pretty stayed on track with being a quality agency, as recognized by the national office. And again, out of 280 affiliates, there's less than probably 75 that get that annually. Well, I would even say less than 50 that get that annually. And then if you get it 2 years in a row or more, there's the Pinnacle Award, which we were the recipient of this year at our national conference. And so we strive on being, again, at the cutting edge of technology and innovation when it comes to programming, because we want to meet our local community need. And then we really, really want to recognize the work of our bigs, who were, again, the state Big Brother and Big Sister of the Year this year, Jason Wilmoth and Beverly Williford. That's a major accomplishment. Just a few years ago, Murray Miller, who's a former big in our program, was the national Big Brother of the Year.
Really?
So we are, here's a cool thing. Now, here's a real cool thing.
All right.
We are the only affiliate to have both a Big Brother and a Big Sister to win National Big Brother of the Year, or Big of the Year. Wanda Stark won it back in the early 2000s as the National Big Sister of the Year. And so Murray came a couple of years ago and won the National Big Brother of the Year. So we're the only agency to have 2.
Wow.
Kind of cool.
And about 280 agencies
Well,
around.
and so I'll tell you this, 280 is down from where we were. We were close to 400 affiliates at one point.
Oh, really?
But, after 2008, I think Teddy mentioned it earlier, some of the troubles, financial troubles in 8, and then with the pandemic, you've seen some mergers. So, but we're down to 280 now. Yeah,
I think we've seen the same thing with Goodwill. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but there are not as many Goodwill territories now as there had been in years past. So little shrinking going on there. Anything, Teddy?
Yeah, is Wanda, just curious, I know Wanda's doing some different stuff now. She's still involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters?
She is. Yep.
Is she? Okay. Hey, we've got a few minutes left. What are a couple, 3 takeaways, if you've got them off the top of your head, you want people to remember about the mission, what you do, what separates you, that kind of thing?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I would want people to know is that we always need support in terms of volunteerism, because the children who want us continues to grow. I could tell, like I said earlier, we're going to serve probably close to 500 or a little over 500 kids this year. And that number is going to grow next year. And with that, we can't do it without financial dollars to support that. So we need, as much as we need volunteers, we need funding to help support it. And so that's part of my job, major part of my job, is to identify avenues of funding to support those at least 100 kids that we average that are in our Cool Club that are waiting to be matched.
Yeah. Well, so the needs are there. And if somebody wants to get involved, Teddy, I think you had posted the web link. Can they reach out? Is there a phone number you want to rattle off, or anything somebody can jot it down, or a person to ask?
You can always reach me at 336-773-9149.
773.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead and repeat that again. You got Teddy, you got it? It's in the chat. Well, so it's 773-9149. Of course, area code 336. Again, Shawan, appreciate you coming by. Shawan Gabriel is the president and CEO for Big Brothers Big Sisters Services Inc. And they're right in our backyard. If you're here in the Triad and you get off, I guess it's Salem Parkway these days, you get off Business 421, and you get off at the Cherry Street exit. Is that the exit still? Right. Yep. And they're there on your right, right there at the corner of what is it, Marshall? I don't know.
And Hyde,
corner of Marshall. Get off the bench, get in the game, and if there's something that you can add in life, the impact can be huge, even if you don't think it is, even if it's nothing more than just spending time. You don't know how that could play out in somebody's life. Teddy, you have a story or something you want to share toward the end here?
I was a big brother in 2005. 2006, somewhere in that world. I was pretty tied into the Triad. I wasn't doing a lot of traveling back then, so I could make that happen. And I had two littles, a brother and a sister. I had two brothers. There was also a sister, and for me, it was a whole lot of fun. And I got to create somewhat of a decent relationship. It didn't turn into long term because these kids went off to, into other spaces. So I lost a little bit of track of them, but then I reconnected with them. And the older little now is a father. He's got two kids. He's off to school and he's moving on to bigger and better things. And so it was rewarding for me to see him achieve goals. That was pretty cool. So
that's awesome.
I'm a big fan.
Were you a little in this agency, Teddy?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So I don't think any of the people that helped me are still with you. They went off to do other things as well. So
some really big
sisters. And I echo what Randy and Shawan's going to say every day. Ask what it's all about and how you can participate.
Yeah, and you never know. Same thing with the work that I do at Goodwill. You never know, and not just with my program, but just with other programs. You never know how a kind word showing that you care, spending a little bit of time, you don't know the long-term impact. There may be a short-term impact that says, hey, I had a good time at the ball game, or hey, I landed a job, but the longer-term impact, you may never know. And that's no reason not to give it a try. So again, Shawan, appreciate you coming by. Teddy, we've got another good show lined up for next Wednesday.
You and I both need this, man.
I think I needed more than you.
Yeah. So next week, my good friend, Randy's good friend, Wanda Swain is going to join us. The conversation is about emotional intelligence. And I get it. It sounds like this big thing, or to some, it sounds like not a big thing at all. But it is important to understand what emotional intelligence is all about. It's also important to understand how having emotional intelligence can improve us, not only in our personal lives, but our business lives, but also help us understand how what we do say and what we do and say how it can impact others. So join us next week. Wanda Swain, our special guest. The conversation is about emotional intelligence. I can promise you'll take away another nugget or two that can help us individually. So anything else, Randy?
No, I think we're good. So lunch is on you, right, Teddy?
Yeah, peanut butter and jelly on Italian bread.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah. Shawan, again, thank you. Good to see you again, my friend. Teddy, again, good to see you, and we'll catch you next week. Any famous last words?
Oh, Shawan, thanks a lot for joining us. Everybody, go out and touch somebody in a meaningful and positive way. How's that, Randy?
There you go. All right. Have a good
Okay,
week.
guys,
See you
later
now.
on.
Bye.
Bye-bye.